Old Song stepped on a white-wrapped iron rod, instantly picturing a group of students under a dark veil. The white cloth only prevented obvious scars. Imagine optimistic college students cared for in this way. In such a shadowy environment, they were educated for a whole month, and furious Old Song was shaking like a leaf, giving up for a little investigation. Just then, he got kicked down by a guardian spirit. Clearly, this guy was the local manager, and he gave Old Song quite the dance. Finally, after spotting Old Song's lawyer badge, he gave him a good boot, but suddenly the national anthem played, and the officer dramatically flexed his muscles. His eyes gleamed with love for the country, all while doing the most selfless act. After the anthem, the officer packaged this event into trending news, telling Old Song the framing of students was merely to give everyone a lesson. He ended with a line about patriotism and following the rules, but by the third trial, this officer had come to spectate. Their gazes collided, charged with friendly threats, but Old Song stood his ground, ready to deliver an even stronger counterattack. Subtitles so openly and generously spoke out about the fact that they had suffered torture and persecution, with the painful memories causing the students to exclaim in shock and silence, and the parents' emotions instantly surging. To find their beloved kids subjected to such absurd affection, even ending up refined, the judge had no choice but to conclude the trial. Subtitles to one's remarks won't hurt anyone, but just a few days ago, a big client came to him. They offered a hefty sum, with the catch being he'd only do their exclusive work, claiming the national economy needs to thrive for people to defend their rights. Old Song refused him without the slightest hesitation, and even said on his way out, "I don't lack money, what I lack is conscience." To make matters worse, the morning paper featured a headline about him stirring the pot, with the state having controlled the media ages ago. This turned Old Song into everyone's spitting target, and on the way to court, folks even hurled rotten eggs at him. Yet Old Song held his ground. Even if the world turned against him, he was adamant about upholding his justice. Just then, the reporter classmate found him, but instead of a showdown, simply handed him his shirt silently. As he exchanged from a suit to a shirt, Old Song realized he wasn't alone in the battle. But the prosecution tried to crank up the heat, blocking the parents from the fourth trial since the spectator seats were packed. This time, the officer, as the prosecution's star witness, when questioned by Old Song, said they arrested first then processed. Old Song didn't miss a single moment, inquiring of those students who had gathered for discussion about what basis they used to determine that they had violated the national security law. Old Song's questions left the officer speechless, and he boldly presented photos of the bruised students. But the officer coldly rebutted that's because they pushed themselves too hard, a ridiculous remark that sent Old Song into a blaze of fury. Old Song was so enraged his face contorted, while the officer didn't bat an eye, knowing the judge and prosecution were on his side. Subsequently, Old Song was forced off the witness stand, and the judge announced a final trial the next day, indicating the national security law's fate was predetermined. But when Old Song returned to the office, it was a mess, as their law firm was accused of tax evasion. Exhausted, he couldn't clear the students' names and instead got slapped with a made-up charge. Old Song looked worn out, perhaps the price for justice, but got a mysterious call late at night. His wife hadn't slept, having received a strange call mentioning their child's school and class. Faced with this blatant threat, Old Song couldn't sleep a wink, and his wife asked if this case could just stop, but if the world turned upside down, how could they have a home? But the next day, Old Song received an order takeout at the office, and the delivery guy handed him a note. Upon reading the note, Old Song quickly borrowed the delivery guy's raincoat because only by disguising could he dodge the 24-hour guard. Battling the downpour, he rushed to the address and the note, a Christian church, where the one who summoned him was actually a military doctor. It turned out the officer had called a military doctor for urgent care to keep torturing students, and he became a witness to their beatings. Filled with conviction, he was willing to testify, reminding Old Song that he wasn't without backing. Old Song then gathered his lawyer elders and reporter friends, asking them to contact foreign journalists, mentioning he had weapons to change the game. That afternoon, Old Song asked the judge for a witness, but was swiftly refused. Old Song declared that there would be foreign reporters at tomorrow's hearing, adding he'd tell them it was the judge who denied the witnesses. At this moment, the judge finally panicked. When it was time for the witness application at the final trial, seeing the spectator seats packed with foreign reporters, the judge relented to save his career stain. The moment the military doctor entered the court, the officer's composure crumbled, and he hurriedly exited. Under Old Song's questioning, he recounted students being tortured and the tortures used. The testimony swayed completely to Old Song's side, with students and parents shedding joyful tears. Applause thundered through the courtroom, but soon the officer returned with a few soldiers in tow. They took him away, claiming the medic was a deserter. His testimony was clearly invalid. Old Song erupted with rage instantly, but soon the officers dragged him away too. Ultimately, the students were sentenced to 2 years, and soon after, Old Song sincerely apologized to the shop owner. The shop owner consoled him, saying he had done his utmost and must never give up. At this moment, never give up echoed in his mind once more. In the subsequent days, he abandoned his well-paid lawyer's income and began to provide free legal defense for students and the public, leading protests that he had once looked down upon. Amidst police chases and blockades, Old Song stood resolutely at the crowd's front, shouting fervently, "What I desire and what contradicts cannot coexist. Choose ideals over life." Subtitles. Ultimately, Old Song was taken to court for disturbing public order. When calling the defense lawyers, the judge stared blankly at the list. Lai Hangji, Yunji,